The call came on a Tuesday morning in March, 3 months after Richard's funeral. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his empty chair, the way I'd done every morning since the accident. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. "Mrs. Morrison, this is James Rodriguez. I'm the attorney handling your late husband's estate." I'd been expecting this call, but hearing the word estate still felt strange. Richard and I had lived simply. He was a postal worker for 37 years. I taught second grade until I retired 5 years ago. We had our house, our modest savings, his pension, nothing that required lawyers and formal phone calls. "Yes, Mr. Rodriguez. I've been meaning to come by your office. Actually, that's why I'm calling. We need to schedule a meeting to go over the details. There are some things we need to discuss in person." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all, Mrs. Morrison. But there are several matters that require your signature, and I think you'll want to sit down when we go through everything." We set an appointment for Thursday afternoon. I spent the next 2 days trying not to think about it, but my mind kept wandering. Richard had always handled our finances. He paid the bills, managed our savings, dealt with insurance and investments. I knew we were comfortable, but I'd never paid much attention to the details. He'd wanted me to focus on my students, on my garden, on the things I loved. Now I wished I'd asked more questions. Thursday came. I drove to Mr. Rodriguez's office in downtown Portland, my hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. The spring rain was coming down hard, drumming against the windshield. I thought about Richard, how he'd loved the rain. "It makes everything grow, Eleanor," he used to say. Mr. Rodriguez's office was on the 3rd floor of an old brick building. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a gentle handshake. He led me to a conference room with a view of the wet streets below. "Can I get you some water? Coffee? Water would be nice." He set a glass in front of me, then sat down across the table with a thick folder. "Mrs. Morrison, I want to start by saying that your husband was very thorough. He made sure everything was in order." That sounds like Richard. "He came to see me about 2 years ago, updated his will, arranged his affairs. He wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of." 2 years ago. Before he knew, before the accident that took him from me in an instant on Highway 26, on his way home from visiting his brother in Seattle, Mr. Rodriguez opened the folder. "Let me walk you through this. First, there's the house. It's fully paid off, worth approximately $320,000 in the current market." I nodded. "We'd paid off the mortgage 10 years ago. Then there's the savings and checking accounts. Combined, they total about $98,000. That was more than I thought, but Richard had always been a careful saver. There's also his pension benefit, which will continue to pay you monthly." "Yes, I've been receiving those payments." Mr. Rodriguez pulled out another document. "Now, what you might not be aware of is that Richard had a substantial life insurance policy through the Postal Service, and he had a separate private policy he'd been paying into for years." My heart started beating faster. "How substantial?" He slid the paper across to me. I looked at the number, looked again. The room seemed to tilt. $2,400,000. "That can't be right," I whispered. "It is. The Postal Service policy was for $800,000. The private policy, which he increased 2 years ago, was for $1.6 million. I couldn't breathe. Why would he? We never talked about. "Mrs. Morrison, your husband worked a lot of overtime over the years, didn't he?" "Yes. Extra shifts, holiday routes. I always told him he didn't need to work so hard. He was putting that extra money into insurance premiums. He wanted to make sure that if anything happened to him, you'd never have to worry." Tears blurred my vision. This was so like Richard. Always thinking ahead, always protecting me, even now that he was gone. "There's one more thing. Mr. Rodriguez pulled out another document. Richard owned a small beach house in Cannon Beach. It was in his family. He inherited it from his uncle about 15 years ago. "The beach house?" I sat up straighter. I thought his brother Michael inherited that. "No, it went to Richard. He never mentioned it?" I shook my head, confused. "We went there a few times when we were first married. I loved that place, but Richard said his brother got it when Uncle Frank died. Michael lives in Seattle, and I just assumed. According to the deed, It's been in Richard's name since 2010. It's worth approximately $250,000. Beachfront property in Cannon Beach has appreciated significantly. My head was spinning. The house, the savings, the insurance, the beach house. I was looking at close to $3 million. $3 million. I'd never imagined such a number connected to my life. I don't understand why he never told me about the beach house. Mr. Rodriguez's expression softened. Sometimes people have their reasons for keeping certain things separate. Perhaps he was planning to surprise you with it for retirement. Maybe, but it seemed strange. Richard and I didn't keep secrets. I signed papers for the next hour, my hand shaking. Mr. Rodriguez explained trusts and tax implications and investment options, but the words washed over me. I kept thinking about Richard. About 37 years of waking up at 4 a.m. to sort mail, of coming home with aching feet and a smile still on his face, of all those extra hours he worked so I could have this. When I finally left the office, it was nearly dark. The rain had stopped. I sat in my car in the parking garage and cried, pressing my forehead against the steering wheel. I drove home in a daze. The house felt emptier than ever. I made myself tea I didn't drink and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the copies of documents Mr. Rodriguez had given me. That's when my phone rang. Michael's name lit up the screen. "Eleanor, I heard from the attorney's office that you finally met with Rodriguez." Something about his tone was off. Too cheerful, too interested. "Yes, just this afternoon. So you know about everything now. The insurance, the beach house, all of it." "I do. It's overwhelming, isn't it? All that money, all those decisions. Especially for someone who's never really handled finances before." My jaw tightened. "I'm learning." Of course. Listen, Eleanor, I want you to know that I'm here to help. That's what family does. Richard would want me to look after you. Michael and I had never been particularly close. He'd visit once or twice a year, always asking Richard for loans that never got paid back. Richard never complained, but I'd heard the phone calls, seen the checks written. "That's kind of you," I said carefully. "I was actually thinking we should sit down and go over everything together. I work in financial services, you know. I could help you set up some proper management for all this. And honestly, Eleanor, that beach house is a money pit. The maintenance, the property taxes, they're astronomical. It just sits there empty most of the year. We should probably think about selling it. I could handle that for you. Take that burden off your shoulders." My hands gripped the phone tighter. "I haven't even thought about any of that yet, Michael." I know. But these things need attention. Money like this, if it's not managed properly, it can disappear faster than you'd think. And you're not getting any younger, Eleanor. You need someone looking out for your interests. Not getting any younger. I was 63. Richard had been 65. Let me think about it. Of course. But don't wait too long. These things have time-sensitive aspects. Tell you what, I'll drive down this weekend. We can go through everything together. I'll even bring my daughter, Jessica. You remember Jessica? She's in real estate now. She could give us a realistic assessment of what the beach house would sell for. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my kitchen and felt something cold settle in my stomach. The way Michael talked about Richard's beach house, like it was already his decision. The way he'd emphasized my age, my inexperience. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing Michael's voice. "You're not getting any younger. Someone who's never really handled finances. We should probably think about selling." The next morning, I did something I rarely do. I opened Richard's laptop. I'd been avoiding it, couldn't bear to see his bookmarks, his files, the digital traces of his life. But now I needed to understand. I started going through his documents. Financial spreadsheets, insurance policies, records going back years. Richard had been meticulous. Every payment documented, every investment tracked. I found a folder labeled Beach House and opened it. Property tax records, maintenance receipts, but also photos. Dozens of photos I'd never seen. The beach house, recently painted a soft blue-gray. New windows, a renovated deck. Photos dated from just 2 years ago. Richard had been fixing it up. Why hadn't he told me? I kept searching and found a subfolder called Future Plans. Inside was a document titled For Eleanor. My hands trembled as I opened it. My dearest Eleanor, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you've met with Rodriguez. I'm sorry I kept the beach house a secret. I wanted to surprise you. I've been renovating it slowly, bit by bit, for our retirement. I plan to take you there on your 65th birthday and tell you it's ours, our place to watch the ocean and grow old together. But if you're reading this instead, then you know my surprise early. The house is yours now. It's paid off, it's beautiful, and it's waiting for you. Don't let anyone convince you to sell it. It's your home by the sea, the one you told me you dreamed about when we were young. I love you. Richard. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. He'd remembered. A conversation 40 years ago when we were newly married and walking on Cannon Beach, and I'd said someday I'd love to wake up to the sound of waves. I grabbed my phone and called Mr. Rodriguez. The beach house. Has anyone contacted you about it? Actually, yes. Your brother-in-law called yesterday afternoon, right after you left, asked me to send him the property details. Said you'd be selling and he wanted to help facilitate. He had no right. I didn't send him anything. I only discuss estate matters with you, Mrs. Morrison, but I thought you should know. After I hung up, I sat with Richard's letter in my hands and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about money. This was about Richard's last gift to me, his final act of love, and Michael was already trying to take it. Saturday morning, Michael showed up at my door with his daughter Jessica. She was 32, dressed in a sharp blazer, carrying a tablet. "Eleanor!" Michael pulled me into a hug that felt like a performance. "You look tired. Are you sleeping okay?" "I'm fine." We brought bagels and coffee. Thought we could sit down and really dig into all this. I led them to the dining room. Jessica immediately started pulling up spreadsheets on her tablet. "Okay, Aunt Eleanor, I've done some preliminary research on the Cannon Beach property. Based on comparable sales in the area, we're looking at a listing price of around $260,000. After commission and closing costs, you'd net about $230,000. Not bad for a property you probably forgot you even had." She smiled at me like she'd just done me a huge favor. "I'm not selling it." Jessica's smile froze. Michael set down his coffee. "Eleanor, let's not make hasty decisions." "It's not hasty. Richard left me that house. He wanted me to have it. Richard was sentimental about that place, but sentiment doesn't pay property taxes. Do you know what the annual taxes are on beachfront property? Over $8,000, plus insurance, maintenance, utilities, if you keep them on. You're looking at $15,000, maybe $20,000 a year just to own it. I can afford that." Michael's expression shifted, became calculating. "Can you, though? Have you really looked at the numbers? You've got what? The insurance money and the savings. That seems like a lot right now, but it goes fast, Eleanor. Especially at your age. You could live another 20, 30 years. You need that money managed carefully, invested properly. And holding on to a property you're never going to use, that's just capital tied up doing nothing. How do you know I'm never going to use it? You're 63. You going to move to the coast by yourself? Drive back and forth in the winter? Come on, Eleanor. Be realistic." Jessica jumped in. "What Dad's saying is that liquidating the property now, while the market's strong, that's the smart move. You take that money, add it to the insurance payout, and if it's managed correctly, you could have a nice, steady income stream for life." "Managed by who?" Michael leaned forward. "I could help with that. I have clients I manage portfolios for. It's what I do." "You work in financial services. What exactly does that mean?" His jaw tightened slightly. "I'm a financial advisor. I help people make smart decisions with their money." "Are you licensed?" "I work with licensed professionals. I'm more of a consultant. But Eleanor, that's not the point. The point is family. Richard was my brother. I want to help you the way he'd want me to." I looked at him across my dining room table and saw something I'd never let myself see before. The way he'd called Richard after every major holiday asking for money. The way he'd barely visited until Richard died. The way he was sitting here now, in my home, talking about my money like it was already somehow his. "I need to think about this." "Eleanor." Michael's voice hardened just a little. "I'm trying to help you. I know Richard kept you sheltered from financial matters. I know you're not experienced with this. But trust me when I say that people will take advantage of you. People will see a widow with money and they'll circle like sharks. You need someone you can trust. I need you to leave." Jessica's eyes widened. Michael stared at me. What? I appreciate you coming, but I'm not making any decisions today about the house or anything else. Eleanor, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm taking time to grieve my husband and understand what he left me. That's reasonable. Michael stood up slowly. His face had gone red. You know, Richard always said you could be stubborn, unrealistic. I guess he was right. Richard never said that. He did. To me. He worried about what would happen to you if anything happened to him. He knew you couldn't handle things on your own. The words were meant to hurt, and they did. But they also rang false. Richard had never talked about me that way. Never. After they left, I sat in the silence and felt something I hadn't felt in 3 months. Not just grief, but anger. Clear, focused anger. I spent the next week doing something I should have done from the start. I researched. I called Mr. Rodriguez and asked for referrals to licensed financial advisors. I scheduled consultations with 3 different firms. I read articles about estate management, about investment strategies for widows, about protecting assets. I also drove to Cannon Beach, 2 hours north on Highway 101, the coast road Richard had loved. The beach house sat on a slight rise, looking out over the Pacific. Blue-gray paint, white trim, exactly like the photos. I used the key Mr. Rodriguez had given me and stepped inside. It was beautiful. Hardwood floors Richard had refinished himself. New windows letting in the ocean light. A kitchen with updated appliances. A bedroom with a view of the waves. In the closet, I found a box. Inside were more photos and a notebook in Richard's handwriting. Painting the exterior, April 2023. Eleanor loves blue, new deck, June 2023. She can have her morning coffee watching the sunrise. Kitchen renovation, October 2023. She always wanted a window over the sink. Every entry was about me. Every choice made with me in mind. I sat on the deck and watched the waves and cried. But this time it wasn't just grief. It was gratitude. Richard had loved me enough to plan this, to work those extra hours, to create this future for me, even knowing he might not be part of it. I wasn't going to let Michael take it. Back home, I met with a financial advisor named Patricia Kim. She was recommended by Mr. Rodriguez, fee only, fiduciary responsibility. She reviewed everything carefully. Mrs. Morrison, you're in excellent shape financially. With the insurance, the savings, the pension, and the home equity, you have close to $3 million in assets. If we invest conservatively, you could generate around $90,000 a year in income, plus your pension. You could live quite comfortably. You could even maintain the beach house without touching principal. What about if someone wanted to manage this for me and charge, say, 2% annually? Patricia's expression tightened. 2% of $3 million is $60,000 a year. That's more than half your investment income. No one needs to charge that much. My fee is 1%, and that's only on assets I actively manage. For someone in your situation, you'd probably pay around $15,000 annually for comprehensive planning and management. And if someone recommended I sell the beach house? Why would they? It's paid off, it's appreciating, and you can afford to maintain it. Unless you don't want it, there's no financial reason to sell. In fact, holding on to coastal real estate is usually a smart long-term investment. I hired Patricia that day. That evening, Michael called. Eleanor, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I just want what's best for you. I've hired a financial advisor. Silence. Then, you did what? Her name is Patricia Kim. She's going to help me manage everything. Eleanor, you should have talked to me first. You don't know this woman. She could be anyone. At least I'm family. She comes highly recommended. And she's a fiduciary, which means she's legally required to act in my best interest. And I'm not? I'm your brother-in-law. I'm telling you, these professional types, they're just after their fees. They'll smile and nod and take your money. Her fee is 1%. You suggested 2%, Michael. Another pause. I never said 2%. You said that's what you charge your clients. Standard fee. Eleanor, you're confused. You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking very clearly. And I'm not selling the beach house. That house should have gone to me. His voice had gone cold. Dad left it to Frank. Frank should have left it to me. Richard knew that, but he took it anyway. And now you're sitting on it like some kind of prize. Richard inherited it legally. Richard stole it. He knew I needed it more than he did. He knew I'd been having financial problems. But he took it anyway, and he never even used it. Just let it sit there. He was renovating it. For me. Michael laughed, harsh and bitter. Renovating it? Eleanor, wake up. Richard was probably planning to sell it himself. Make a profit. That's why he never told you about it. And now you're going to what? Move there? You're going to leave the home you've lived in for 40 years and move to the coast alone? Maybe I will. You won't. You're scared of your own shadow. Richard always said so. You're not strong enough to start over. Goodbye, Michael. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger, from clarity. I knew what I was going to do. Over the next 2 months, I worked with Patricia. We set up a trust for the insurance money, invested conservatively. We established a budget. We made sure everything was protected and growing. The pension covered my basic living expenses. The investment income would be there for anything else. I also started spending weekends at the beach house. I bought furniture. I hung pictures. I planted flowers in the garden Richard had started. I joined a local book club. I volunteered at the Cannon Beach Library. One Saturday in May, I was planting roses along the deck when a car pulled into the driveway. Michael and Jessica. I stood up, brushing dirt from my hands. You're trespassing. This is still family property, Eleanor. It's my property. Richard left it to me. Michael walked up the steps, looking at the house, the garden, me in my dirt-covered jeans. You're actually moving here. I'm here every weekend. In a few months, I'll be here full-time. You're making a mistake. You're too old to start over. You're going to end up isolated and alone. I'm 63, not 90. And I'm not alone. I've made friends here. I have a community. Jessica spoke up, her voice sharp. You know what I think? I think you're being selfish. That money, that house, they should be supporting the family. Dad has 3 kids he's trying to put through college. I'm trying to build a business. But you're sitting on millions, playing house at the beach like some kind of princess. I looked at this young woman, this stranger who thought she was entitled to my husband's life insurance, to his final gift to me. Richard worked for 37 years. He got up before dawn and sorted mail and delivered packages and worked double shifts. He did that so I would be taken care of. Not you, not your father, me. He was Dad's brother, and he left everything to his wife. That's how marriage works, Jessica. Michael stepped closer. You're going to regret this, Eleanor. When you're 75 and alone and running out of money, don't come calling us. I won't be running out of money, and I don't plan on calling you. Richard would be ashamed of you. The words hit like a slap. But I thought about the letter Richard had left me, the house he'd renovated, the future he'd planned. Richard wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to have this place. He told me so, in writing. And I'm finally understanding that honoring him doesn't mean giving away what he worked so hard to leave me. They left. I watched their car disappear down the coast road and felt something release in my chest. That fall, I sold my house in Portland. Not because I needed the money, but because I was ready. Ready to live in the home Richard had built for me. Ready to wake up to the sound of waves. I donated $100,000 to the Postal Workers Union in Richard's name. Started a scholarship fund for children of postal workers. Another $50,000 went to the local library in Cannon Beach to create a reading program for seniors. I didn't tell Michael. I didn't tell Jessica. They'd made it clear what they thought I owed them, and I'd made it clear I disagreed. A year after Richard died, I was sitting on my deck watching the sunset when I got a voicemail from Michael. I almost deleted it without listening. But something made me press play. Eleanor. It's Michael. I just wanted to say, I heard about the scholarship, the donation to the union. That was a good thing you did. Richard would have liked that. A long pause. I'm sorry. For how I acted. For what I said. You were right. It was never my money. I've been struggling, and I thought maybe, but that's not your problem. I hope you're happy there. At the beach. I hope it's everything Richard wanted it to be. I listened to the message 3 times. I didn't call back. Maybe someday I would. Or maybe this was enough. An acknowledgement, an apology, a closing of a door. I deleted the voicemail and went inside to make dinner. In the kitchen, with the window over the sink, looking out at the ocean, I thought about Richard, about second-grade students and overtime shifts and life insurance policies. About a man who'd loved me enough to work himself to exhaustion so I could have this. "I'm happy," I said out loud to the empty room, to the ghost of my husband, to the life I was building. "I'm happy, Richard. Thank you." The waves crashed against the shore, the sun set over the Pacific, and I stood in my kitchen, in my house, in my life, and knew that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not because I'd fought for it, not because I'd won some battle, but because I'd understood what Richard had known all along, that I was stronger than anyone gave me credit for, that I could handle this, that I deserved this. The money would last, the house would stand, and I would wake up every morning to the sound of the ocean, just like Richard had planned. Just like I'd dreamed about 40 years ago on a beach with a young postal worker who'd promised to give me the world. He'd kept his promise. And I was finally brave enough to accept it.